Well, welcome back once again. As you can see, I have been doing a little gluing there and there along the bottom edge of the cabinet. We got a long ways to go. I got to go all the way around. One thing I wanted to show you though, whenever you're working on a cabinet, whether it be a floor model radio, a small one, or a huge thing like this, or whatever the case may be, I don't know, something in the kitchen for all I know, yeah, and you need filler wood. One of the best places, or the best things, the best places is actually either Lowe's or Home Depot or your local hardware store. Pick up some shims. These shims are tapered, okay? They do wonders for filling in on cabinet wood. There's also another kind you can get that's the same thickness all the way down. It's about that, I guess that's about 1/8 of an inch maybe. That really does, and they come in long strips. You can cut them to any shape, any width. They really work good for fill wood. An example being right here, I wanted to fill in this slot right here where the wood is completely gone, so I stuck it down in there with some glue. Now I'll just take my knife and cut down all along there tomorrow after it's dried and just pop it right off. When I sand it down, that entire slot will be filled in with that stuff right there. Over here, we're probably going to be doing the same thing, but I needed to glue some of these things together right here, which had fallen out. The problem was the wood right here bowed upward, and I needed to get it to go that way so it would be flat. So I used your shim. See, I stuck it down in that slot, and it bowed around this way. So this shim right here, I just kept shoving it down in there until it finally went as far as I wanted it to go, until the glue dries. Now right here, this is I'll be filling this slot probably before I leave the shop today with this one right here. Okay, same thing I did over there. These things really work good. They're soft. I think they're pine. Really easy to work with, and they really do the job as far as filling. You can fill in vertically. You can cut them into little pieces. They're only 1/4 of an inch wide, and they cut real easy. They work real good, and the best of all, they're cheap. And once they're glued in, they're in. Okay. We're going to take just kind of a short, quick break from our mechanism here, and we're going to move over here to the amplifier. Brendan has been on my case. He's wanting me to pull these 4 transistors out of here, which is XQ101, 2, 3, and 4. They're all 2N109s. He wants me to go ahead and pluck them out, and I've already cleaned them up and everything. I'll clean them again. Apparently the sockets are a little dirty still. And we're going to go ahead and run them across our little tester here that I now have in the case that was supplied by our family up in Maine. I took a little grinding here, there, and whatever, but I finally was able to get it to fit. And the back is on with 4 screws, and she looks real good. Well protected now. I didn't like the idea of it hanging out there in the middle of nowhere all the time, So let's go ahead and pull all 4 of these and see if we can't get them hooked up. I'll do one, and I'll hook it up and show you how it works, and then we'll do the remaining 3. Each of these transistors have 2 leads that are close together, and 1 lead that's further apart. You can see it better on this one right here. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and plug it right into our machine here, and we don't even have to figure out which one's the base, which one's the collector, and which one is the emitter, because our little tester here will tell us. Now on the tester we have 1, 2, and 3, which corresponds to 1, 2, and 3 up here, and that 1, 2, 3 is both at the bottom and the top. See that divider right there? So let's go ahead and plug it in. Let me see, trying to plug it in without trying to damage it. Let me see, I'll probably have to do this by eye instead of through the camera, which I have, I hope. I think I got it. Now we go ahead and, oops, let me get it set up. Alright, there we go. I had to kind of split apart the 2 that were closest together. I had to kind of separate them just enough where they would make it over that blue hump and get into each hole. So let's get this out of the way where we can see a little better. As a matter of fact, I don't even think I need it. Okay, here we go. Let's back up a little bit, press our button, and see what happens. Okay, number 1 is the emitter, number 2 is the base, number 3 is the collector. So what this is telling us, it has a 125, the way I understand is it has 125 millivolt loss as it goes through, and this is the gain of this transistor, 74. Well, here you go. That's it. Your emitter to base voltage drops are about the same, and your gain, of course, is really big on this one. But tell you what do you say we take some grease and some oil and we lubricate our clutch? They don't show you how to do it in the manual. I thought that was kind of poor. They show the disassembly of it, you know. One of our good subscribers said, well, why don't you just tear the whole thing apart and just re-clean it, put it all back together? Yeah, right. No, not going to do that. This is my first time. Maybe next time. Maybe if I buy another jukebox, I might give it a shot, because I'll have hopefully one jukebox that's playing, and if the second one never gets playing, well, that's the way it goes. I don't want this one messed up, okay? When you don't know what you're doing, you always err on the side of caution. So essentially, if you go to the rest of the you know, where the lubrication charts are, and you look at all the different spots, all they should, they don't take into consideration that you've removed, you know, the clutch assembly. It's all together, and they just show you how to oil it from the outside. It's all done from the outside. A little bit of grease, a little bit of oil, and that's about it. So we're just going to have to, once again, we're just going to have to use common sense. So let's get started. Well, looking at this clutch from this side, which is where it's, you know, how it's positioned in this drawing, what they want you to do is they want you to oil down in here. They want you to, you know, where the shaft goes through. They want you to oil the worm gear itself, or grease the worm gear. They want you to put oil up in here in the center of the shaft where it goes around and around. They want you to put oil down in here, down in here. They want you to oil these two where the rod goes horizontally through this, I guess it's just a round hub. They want you to put a little oil down there. Essentially what they want you to do is put oil anywhere there's a joint. Well, guess what? That's what we're going to do. But first, we're going to grease it. We're going to put our grease here. We're going to put our grease top and bottom on the gears, and anywhere else where I think grease should go. But you don't want to over grease it. I've seen some videos out there, YouTube videos, where, I mean, we got one guy there, he's just pouring the oil down, pouring it all over this entire thing. Just, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think that's right. So we're not going to be doing that, but we are going to grease it, but we're not going to go bananas, okay? I'll tell you what, this grease, this Lucas lithium grease, this is some good thick stuff. I didn't expect it to be that thick. I thought it would be kind of runny, you know, but it's not. It's nice and thick. Boy, that's great. I like that. Stays in place, too. All right. You know, once this clutch is put back in and bolted up, you're not going to be able to see the gears. You'll be able to see the worm gear, but you won't be able to see the lower gear or this gear. So don't just sort of skim across the top with the grease like that. Okay, you don't want that. You want to get each of those gear teeth completely full of that grease without going, you know, you just don't want it everywhere, but at the same time, you've got to make sure that it's down in there all the way to the bottom. I'm not going to have a bunch of sloppy grease laying everywhere, but I do want to make sure when the two teeth mesh, they're going to push it down even further, and we're going to have a nice greased set of gears, okay? Alright, based on what I remember, where we had the grease when we first opened this thing up, she's got a good liberal coating on there without going totally bananas. The rest is just oil. Everything is oil. Matter of fact, when you go up here to the drawing and you remove the two L's here, which means grease, let me zoom in on that for you. See the two L's, they talk about the worm gear, and over here away from the clutch there's another place that has to have grease put in, and everything else, and there's the L, which means lubricate. It says sparingly, okay? We don't need to go totally goofy. And the rest will be stars, and we're going to be using our oil, our motor oil. And as you can see, there's a billion stars. We already looked at that, I think, in the last video or the one before that. So let's start dripping a little bit of oil here, there, and everywhere, and I'll see if I can't get things to loosen up a little bit. Basically, all I'm going to be doing, I'll just do a little bit here for you. We're going to go ahead and drip a few drops down in there like that. Put a few drops down in here like this. We're going to kind of, you know, touchy-feely as we go and see how it works. There has to be some oil down in here, that's for sure. And we're going to make sure the entire thing is well oiled without pouring it everywhere, okay? I'll tell you what, you got to see this. Before, it was very hard for me to turn this big star gear and get this thing to rotate around. Now watch. It goes just as slick as can be, just by hand. Look at that. And one other thing, this clutch mechanism that goes up and down. Before, I had to really push hard to get it to go up there. Now look at it. It just goes up and down with no problem at all. Nothing to it. Boy, this baby's turning easy peasy, as they say. I think, yeah, I think we can go ahead and get it put back in. I'm going to go ahead and put just another. I'll put a nice coat of oil on this steel shaft to kind of keep the rust down. Everything is functioning as it should be. Everything is great. And let's go see what we can do with the other gear that meshes with this. See if we can't get some grease on that baby, and maybe we can get this back in. That'll be the end of the video if I can. I went ahead and put the grease on up here. What you do is you have to turn that black coupling right there, which in turn turns the big gear here, which in turn turns the small gear, so you can pack the grease in. The problem I'm having though is this gear right here that meshes. It meshes with this worm gear right here. I don't know how to get that thing to turn all the way around. I never did get a chance to clean the back side of it like I wanted. So what I'm doing is I went ahead and filled as much as I could with the lithium grease on this side, as far back in there as I could, and I added just a little bit of extra to the worm gear, and that should take care of any problem. I hope anyway. Okay, now we've got that done. Now what I'm going to do is take a little oil. You have to do your oiling before you put the whole thing back together. And I'm basically going to do the same thing I did here. I'm going to look at my little chart over there. It's going to tell me where to oil, up at the top and maybe down around the sides here. And we're going to get this baby oiled, and then we'll stick it on. Well, in the process of oiling, I have found another set of contacts buried down in there. Right in there, see them? Oh man, I'm going to have to get down in there and get that clean. I won't be able to put the clutch on and clean those contacts real well with the clutch on. I'll have to clean them first. But we can do that. Meanwhile, I think we're about ready to go. I've oiled just about everything. If it moves, it got some oil down in this area here where we're messing with the clutch. If it moved or even looked like it moved, it got some oil. And things are really nice now. Look at that, boy! I'll tell you, that is just so cool. And we're about ready to rock and roll here. Let's get the contacts cleaned. In order to get this, the top of this arm here into that slot down in there, you remember that slot we had to get it out of. We had to get it out of that slot, and then we had to take that C clamp off of that thing right there. Well, the problem is this thing here is in the way. The arm will come up, and when it's trying to get into the slot, when I'm trying to fit it in there, it'll hit. So we need to get that baby out of the way. And how we're going to do it is this arm right here works that thing, okay? And these little clothespin things I bought a whole bag, a couple of bags of them, I think, a few years ago at a flea market. If I can get it right on my fingers, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this baby like so. I'm just going to clip it on there like that. See, just bring it on down, clip it in place. That'll hold it in place long enough for me to go ahead and get that bar down in that slot now that's clear. One other thing, everyone I've seen on YouTube has tried to put this clutch in with this thing standing vertically, this whole mechanism standing vertically. Seems to me it would be a whole lot easier just to lay it on its side, as long as you make sure you protect this switch right here, you know, your forward and reverse switch. Got to be careful of that. I think it'll just be a whole lot, just easy all the way. Let's find out. If not, you'll see this thing standing up vertically in the next segment. Well, it wasn't the easiest thing I've ever done, but it wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done either. I mean, my gosh, just took a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of finessing. You know, you just don't lose patience with it. We're going to put these 2 bolts in the top, and then we'll put the 2 in the bottom, and then we'll put that little C-clip right down in there. That's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get started on that. That little C-clip goes right down in there. I think we can make some room here that'll help us out. Yep, it goes on the end of that shaft right there. So what's the master plan to get this little ring back on that shaft where there's almost no room or space down there? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some grease. This is good, thick, heavy grease, I'm glad to see. I'm going to put it on the end of this screwdriver. And then I'm going to set this thing, this ring, which is magnetic, the screwdriver is magnetic, I'm going to set that on top of the grease. Then I'm going to use that big screwdriver to hold the ring in place while I take this other screwdriver, this little skinning one. Remember, it's going to be held in place by one screwdriver. I'm going to take this other screwdriver and push on it and snap it over the top of that slot. That's the plan. That's what I plan to do. Yes, I will make it happen. Well, there it is. I timed myself. It took exactly 6 seconds to get that clip back on that rod and that slot. Man, it just isn't going to get any easier than that. I mean, that's a piece of cake. And let me see. I've got our 4 bolts in, the 2 at the top and the 2 Phillips head types at the bottom. Got them tightened up. We got our spring back on, the one that we just left hanging after we took it off of here. Let's see if I can get this over. You can see a little better. And we put our spring right here back on, from here down into there. We're all done with this side right now. Next time we'll flip it over and go to the other side and do a little more oiling. And then of course we will double and triple check everything to make sure it all gets its oil like it's supposed to. We have some wires to repair on the bottom of this. We have another wire in the front. Remember that white wire we had to take off? We're going to have to put a new wire on there. A few things left to do. I hope you all learned something. I hope it was fun watching me. I'm wondering whether or not I was going to screw it up. I probably thought more of that. I was going to screw it up more than you thought I was going to. Anyway, until next time, this is Jock.